Join us at Pole Pole, where Dorcas shows us a new perspective of what the African community is doing now.
Hello Australia, thank you so much for tuning in. This is Oz African TV. I'm Dorcas Utkovich, and today we're tackling some serious issues that affect our youth. In the tent, I will be joined by the power couple Zione Walker-Nthenda and Inkenna Nwokolo of Incubate Foundation. Also joining me is a young, courageous woman, Pwiti, to discuss some issues that are close to her heart. And finally, I'll be joined by lawyer and youth worker Barbara Osafo-Kwaako. Before we get into all that serious business, let's check in with Chef Stolly. Chef Stolly, what's on the menu today?
Today I'm making a goat, tomato and okra stew. Something I learned when I was 18 at an Egyptian restaurant.
Yum, it sounds so complicated. What's in it?
It's a really basic onions, garlic, ginger, tomato and okra. And I love to use goat pieces because it's got such a depth of flavor.
Yummy. Well, if you want to be cooking like that, make sure you jump on our website to download your recipe, as well as a shopping list with some ingredients from your local supermarket. And now let's go and chat with my next guest. My first guests are the power couple behind Incubate Foundation, whose main purpose is to create inspiring events and workshops to help young people reach their full potential. Zione and Inkenna join me now. Thank you so much for coming, guys.
Thank you so much for having us.
Firstly, tell me about Incubate Foundation. What do you guys do there?
Well, our vision at Incubate Foundation is helping African Australians reach their fullest potential and contributing their greatest talents in every walk of life in Australia. We work with a whole range of different organizations, and our main three areas that we operate in are professional development, personal development, and also positive narratives. We think it's really important that the broader community has a really positive context and narrative about us as African Australians.
Right, and with your members, who do you deal with? Students mainly, or is it just general members of the community?
It is general, but our communication really targets primarily African Australians. But when we look at our membership, so when we look at the data, we find that we have a lot of people who are other migrants, so Italians, Eastern Europeans, the first people of Australia, Aboriginal Australians. So it's actually a lot more diverse than you would anticipate, which has been fantastic, because we say that we're all about inclusion. We want to be included in mainstream Australia, and so our organization also has to be inclusive of everybody else.
Right, and the name, it's quite special, I know that, to both of you. If I can ask you, Inkenna, can you tell me a little bit about the history of the name?
Sure. It's quite an emotional experience talking about it, because it involved our daughter, who's now 9 years old. She was born at 29 weeks and weighed only 900 grams.
Whoa.
So she was very small, and she obviously couldn't breathe on her own, so she needed an incubator. And the purpose of an incubator is to maintain optimum life with the purpose of developing and growing the person. And because of our experience with our daughter, we were really inspired by the name. We saw how an incubator enabled her lungs to grow every day, so that she got to a stage where she was breathing on her own. And we thought about the foundation, and we thought, well, what is it that we're trying to achieve with the Incubate Foundation? And it's all about inspiring young people and nurturing them and giving them the opportunity to grow through mentoring and through all of our programs, so that they develop into leaders and go out into the community.
And you guys are doing an amazing work.
Thank you.
Of course.
Thank you.
And I know that you're also involved in African
Music
Festival.
Yes.
Yeah. Do you use any of that in the Incubate Foundation at all? Does it cross path at all?
Well, absolutely. Because the Incubate Foundation is about, as Zione said, empowering young people to participate in all walks of life. And so through the African Music and Cultural Festival, we have artists, we have people that love cooking African food. We have musicians. And so they all congregate at the African Music and Cultural Festival. And there are some people that aren't interested in being doctors or lawyers.
Yeah.
They're more interested in the arts. So we nurture that through the African Music and Cultural Festival. And through that festival, we get connections, people that are interested in setting up their own business or becoming musicians, and they want mentors. So we use the Incubate Foundation to establish those networks. So it's a good relationship.
Yeah, and who are some of the the people that you've worked with in the past, or organisations that you've partnered with?
We've been very, very, very lucky, to be honest. So we've had organisations like KPMG provide their venue for us for the whole weekend, for our youth festival, for instance, provide security, provide food, all of that sort of thing. They've done that twice already. Nice. We had Slater and Gordon do exactly the same for our legal series, and for that we had a number of federal court judges as well who were very interested in mentoring young African Australian lawyers. So that was a very, very fantastic sort of mentoring and networking opportunity.
Yeah.
You know that saying, when you sort of build it, they will come. Just by creating this platform, the sort of generosity of the broader Australian community has really been very moving for us, because a whole range of people have just said, oh, you're doing blah, we're happy to help you in any way.
Wow.
And every single time we've called, people have said, yes, absolutely, and they've given more than we've even anticipated.
Your message to young people out there who might find themselves going astray, how can they refocus and reach their potential, as your organisation suggests?
Well, we would say go onto the website and register as a member for starters, because you might see a program that you like. So for instance, we have the Job Ready program to prepare people into employment. We have the entrepreneurship program to prepare people into starting up your own business. And it might be even as a creative person where you say, I don't want to work for anybody else. That's not my makeup.
Yeah.
It's not my orientation. But I don't know how to get started. So we have those type of programs.
We're pretty well connected within the space, and so we can link people with mentors in their particular area of need. So it's something that we do as well. So register and become a member.
Go online, go register if you need some help as a young person, because Incubate Foundation is quite inspiring. So and to find out more about all that, we'll put a link that you can go to Incubate. Thank you guys for joining me.
Thank you
Thanks,
very much
Dorcas.
for having us. Thank you.
So how are we going with our stew?
I've got the stew cooking. Right now I'm just prepping the okra. The key is just cutting off the tip of the okra so it doesn't fall apart while cooking.
Nice tip. I'll remember that one. And now, while Chef Stolly still smashes it in the kitchen, let's head back to the tent.
Them dreaming the mother-in-law, same man a playboy. She a bad girl, she par with the rude boy. The girl I know say she not messing with no schoolboy.
My next guest has so much courage in the face of adversity. Catherine Pwiti lost her husband and father of her 4-year-old son to mental illness and drug addiction. Kat, thank you so much for coming to share your most intimate story, and a very important story to be told as well.
Thanks for having me.
That's all right. Now, let's talk a little bit about Kuda. That's how everyone called him.
Yeah.
Yeah. Tell me a little bit about him.
He's originally from Zimbabwe, so he came to Australia back in, I think it was 2008, and so he came with his twin sister, Tinashe. They came as students. He comes from quite a wealthy family back in Zimbabwe. He went to a private school, had a very top education, and he came here to study IT. Although a lot of people have mental illnesses, it's actually a pretty common thing and something that people can learn to live with. His way of dealing with it was to use drugs, and the chemicals within the drugs that have even a more intense effect on his mind and his behaviour and his ability to cope with just everyday life. I think that sort of intensified his mental illness. There were numerous times where the police would come, they'd take him to the hospital. he'd be seen by a psychologist, and within a couple of hours, he'd just rock back up. He would just be back at the door, back home with like a bag of pamphlets. It comes down to the discretion of the psychologist or the nurse or the doctor seeing them at that specific time, and if they are not expressing signs that they need to be hospitalised, then they just send them home. So that's what became really hard, because he was very good, obviously, at hiding that anything was wrong, because he'd been doing it his whole life. Yeah.
But I also know that in that whole time when he was going all through this, and you know, it was obviously challenging for everyone.
Yeah.
There were 3 months where he was, you know, clean, and it was the best time that you guys spent as a couple. Do you want to tell me a little bit about that time?
Yeah, sure. So we had separated, and I think that perhaps made him realise that actually he'd lost everything because of these choices that he was making. We sort of got to an arrangement where I said, well, I'll give you another chance if you get help, because you can't continue this sort of lifestyle, so you need to get help. We tried to get him support through organisations to get into rehab, which he was willing to do. But because he was over 25, there was a whole range of services, that he could no longer access. So even his age bracket made it really difficult to get him any help. We had the option of him being on a waiting list, which could be months up to a year, even longer. Oh, wow. Or we were advised to do rehab as an outpatient, which means to do it from home, and basically you need to have a family or someone who can support you through that. So even though we had separated, I agreed to let him stay with me so we could help him to go through that process. So when we started this rehabilitation process, we sort of made up our own little 90-day challenge. So we made a chart and we sort of said, okay, 90 days of no drugs, no drinking, healthy living, healthy eating, kind of staying away from people and places that influenced him to use drugs. And he was really motivated, and he did really well in that 3 months. That's why, you know, we always look back and think, that's when we actually had him. Like, the real Kuda was there. And, you know, he was engaged with our son and doing things around the house, and he was just present, especially with ice. After 3 months of being off it is actually the most challenging time, because that's when your body realizes that it was addicted to this drug, and that's when you really hit a wall. And he had gotten a job at this point, so that was good in a sense to keep him busy, but now he was sort of getting his own income. So this is when it started deteriorating again, because now he had money, he could easily buy drugs. He was going to work, so he could easily say, I'm at work.
Did it surprise you the way he took his life, you know, with suicide? Did it surprise you at all?
Looking back, I almost feel like I don't see any other way that his life would have ended. Like, that's how bad that combination of suffering from a mental illness and masking that with a drug, especially something as toxic as ice. I don't see any other way out for somebody like that. Someone in his situation needs a holistic approach to rehabilitating, because they can, you know, start to see counsellors or see a psychologist, but that's not going to stop them from using the drug. And the continuing drug use is not going to help them be able to deal with their mental illness. You
and Kuda's sister have put together 2 platforms to, you know, to honour him and also to educate other people. Can you tell me a little bit about those?
Yeah, sure. Myself and his sister Tinashe just thought, we can't let his death be for nothing. And I guess anyone that deals with a family member committing suicide or a tragic death is always going to feel like that. But we, I just feel that with Kuda, because he was a musician and he had quite a big profile as a dancehall artist, as as the Apprentice, and not just in Australia, but also in Zimbabwe. It was actually becoming really big, and he had a catalogue of over more than 400 songs.
Wow.
And a lot of them were unreleased, and we just thought, you know, he had so much talent, so many people looked up to him, so many people were inspired by him because of his talent and his ability to be so creative, that we wanted to almost use his story and his image and his music to help other people. So we've gotten Jamaican dancers to create dance steps to his songs, and we've been using social media to get people to upload videos of themselves doing the dance step with his song, and every song has a positive message behind it. And on the other side, as a kind of prevention thing, we've started a monthly event called Real Man Talk, and that's about getting men, young guys, older guys together to just, we actually dance, so we do involve dance, we teach them the dance steps, and yeah, it's just been really great to see guys that you wouldn't expect to turn up actually saying, yeah, I've had a drug problem, this is how I dealt with it, or yeah, I suffer from depression, or, you know, just feeling safe to just talk about those things.
Well done to you and Tinashe.
Tinashe, yeah.
It's, I mean, you know, this is going to live with you forever. You know, I'm sure it'll hopefully get easier with time. But you guys are doing a really good job. Congratulations on that.
Even if one person can be saved through his death, then that would be amazing.
And that's great. That's amazing. Well, thank you so much.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Everything federal, Mr. International. Some crystal all of them, we run this, say, Marasta. If it's a bad mind, you can keep.
Barbara Osafo-Kwaako is well versed in legal practice. However, in recent times, she's been quite involved in the community. She recently joined Carers of Africa, where she gets involved with young job seekers and clients from Corrections Victoria. In this role, she helps them with legal issues, migration, as well as social issues. And she joins me now. Thank you so much for taking the time out, Barbara.
Thank you, Dorcas, for having me.
It's my pleasure. Now, just firstly, I know that you are a lawyer by profession. And what made you get involved in the community the way that you do?
Okay, when I first came to Australia about 13 years ago, I started working as a paralegal in community legal centres, and I got a passion for helping the disadvantaged, those who are disadvantaged economically and socially. I work as a solicitor in Fitzroy Legal Centre, and I'm also a lawyer and a migration agent in Refugee Legal. And I've worked as a social worker in Ames too, and I'm now in Carers of Africa.
Yeah, and in Carers of Africa, that's where you'll get more involved with young people.
Carers of Africa is a non-profit organization, so I like working with non-profit organizations. And I meet with job seekers who also have mental health issues, and then some also clients from Corrections Victoria. So sometimes I go to court to give evidence and to show that clients need social support.
Yeah. I was talking to Catherine before on the show, and when you hear stories about young men like her late husband, what happens with them, you know, young men with such potential, how they can lose their lives because of mental illness as well as substance abuse. Just, you know, what comes to your mind when you hear such stories?
When I think of that, I know that there's more help outside. I'm thinking that people should take part in certain social activities and get involved in the community.
Yeah.
Just to reduce that isolation.
Yeah, because that's where it stems from, when people are isolated and they feel like they're not a part of the bigger community. What kind of facilities are out there that, you know, people can just pick up the phone and know that they can get help?
There are also other facilities like going to the gym, engaging in yoga, and there are also some, even online, there are also some activities being done, and which there are also treatment programs, education.
And is that the kind of thing that you at Carers of Africa are going to be introducing to these young people who are, for example, the job seekers and others who have mental illness, and the ones from Corrections Victoria? Is that the kind of stuff that you guys are going to be helping them out with?
Yes, with Carers of Africa, we ran some training programs, and now we are even introducing a new program, art therapy, whereby we're going to encourage people with mental health issues to engage in that art therapy, so that to give them some sort of healing.
Yeah.
Yes. And we do a lot of activities, and there's mentoring. We have the social work department and counseling, whereby there's mentoring and there's constant supervision.
Okay, and what message do you want to tell out there to young, I wouldn't say young men, just young people who feel like they're isolated for status, which obviously create mental issues, and also they end up resorting to things like substance and all that to help themselves. What message do you have for them?
We would tell them that it's a common illness. They should not be embarrassed. They should not be afraid. They should be free to be ready to ask for help. Yeah. Because the illness is a sort of thing that if you don't ask for help, nobody knows it. Yeah. And it is not really, people don't want to acknowledge it, but we should try and acknowledge it, and then if they think it's a stigma, they should discuss it with the Africans. Africans are a bit secretive. Yeah. So they should discuss it with their family. It should be within their family. And they should support other members too of the family if they realize that the person is suffering from a substance, engaging in substance abuse, or is suffering from that illness. There's a recent experience with a youth. I had to go to court, and he's suffering from mental illness. And his problem was his Corrections Victoria, but he said he didn't want to remember the past. So he didn't even want to engage in any community work. And he didn't also want support. So the lawyer at Victoria Legal Aid encouraged me to come to give evidence in court that Carers of Africa were prepared to help him. And then he was very happy with me, and he told me he's prepared to move on. But one problem was that support from the family. Yeah. So he didn't have that support from the family, and that is also a very important issue. Yeah. If you really have, because people don't want to go out, you see. So if you have that support from the family and it's spoken, there should be that open discussion within the family, and that will help.
Oh, great! Thank you so much for coming through. That's you've got some really good messages for our viewers out there, and we will put up all the details about mental illness help and substance abuse help as well. And thank you again, Barbara.
Thank you, Dorcas.
This goat, okra and tomato stew looks absolutely divine.
Thank you.
I just want to thank all our brave guests for coming through to share their very personal and important stories. And remember, if you want to find out about everything that happened in this episode, be sure to jump on our website and we'll put all the links there. Thank you so much for joining us today. Love and light to you.
Vanodaidza inini hansi pressure inoda inini zvinganakidze isekwesipoka inini tini munhu wacho pati kuno like macho man I'm the man I'm fly like I'm Peter Pan habits acho straight out Japan tora maritari nakidza vanhu mani paita pati pano pesa dofara ngavauye kuno